Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining to my today's vlog. My guest today is amazing photographer who I've been following for many years. You're doing extraordinary work. His name is, I'm sure you guys know him really well, Zach Sutton. Welcome for accepting my invitation and joining the vlog. So thank you again, and I have a bunch of questions to you. It seems like you've been in this industry for so long, so your experience and everything which you probably will share with us will be very valuable for a lot of photographers out there. So before we jump into more detailed questions, I would like to kind of hear a little bit your story. How did you get into photography? What's the story which probably nobody knows? I tried to find something, but it seems like you've been a little bit secretive. Like there's a lot of secrets behind it, which I couldn't.
I don't know about secrets, but I got started. I've always been sort of like kind of the art kid in my family. So I got started like when I was really young. I would be drawing all the time, and then kind of through high school, I was playing a lot of music. My dad was a studio musician growing up in a very like music-centric family. And I think it kind of just started as like it probably started from music. I kind of reached a point where, I was in various bands and stuff and trying to get people to photograph our shows and promo photos and different stuff like that, and just having a pretty tough time finding people that would do that. So just kind of reached a point where I was like, I'm going to do it. And bought a camera and started shooting like live performances and some like band promo stuff, and then I got into like lighting, and that kind of just like changed everything for me. I was always, up until that point, I was always like a natural light shooter. I was sort of unsatisfied with like how a lot of my work looked, and then once I bought a speed light, and then that speed light turned into a strobe, and then now it's turned into multiple strobes, and it kind of just evolved from there.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how long you've been shooting? Like what's...
I've been shooting professionally for 12, 13 years now.
Oh, wow.
But, there was a few years before that where I was, had a camera or, had a DSLR and was, shooting little things here and there, still trying to figure it out.
Oh, okay. So it's a still learning process, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm self-taught, and I tell people that, like, I'm still figuring stuff out today. You never stop learning. So
absolutely. So my next question is, so who inspires you as a photographer? Like I know we have all our idols, and then people we look up to. So who is your kind of list of people you really kind of, I don't know, maybe not going after them, but what I want to say is like, this is the kind of level of photography you would like to do?
My favorite photographer, I think, will always be Martin Scholler.
Okay.
I think his creativity and just like his natural ability with lighting and getting his clients to do just some of the weirdest things ever. I think I'm just fascinated by his work, whether it be, he shot female bodybuilders to his celebrity work to kind of everything in between. So that's always sort of my go-to. I want to be him someday. And then like, as you know, I've been shooting a lot of beauty over the last couple of years, and it kind of started as a just rebuilding that portfolio, and then it sort of turned into this like, I've rebuilt that portfolio, and now I'm still shooting it. So in the beauty world, I'm fascinated by Ben Hassett. I'm fascinated by a good friend of mine, Jen Collins. Michelle Monique. There's a number of beauty photographers that I kind of like follow religiously. And I'm just constantly trying to deduct what they've done and how they do it. So
well, we all do that, I guess, right? So awesome. So now I want to talk a little bit about one of those topics which, like, I don't want to say I don't want to talk about it, but people, if I'm not going to ask you that question, they're going to go after me, and I'm going to get hell from them. So let's talk a little bit about the gear, and we kind of get this off the table as soon as we can. So can you tell me a little bit about your gear? Because, you mentioned a few minutes ago, it was a little bit of process, right? I think like for most of us, we're starting with the camera, natural light, and then we're getting into some more, I would say, precise gear which can help us to create the vision which we're going after. I know there's huge debate over the equipment nowadays, and people are losing their mind. So I want to talk a little bit about the gear which you're using, and also what is your take on the gear? Like, how important that is. Are you paying a lot of attention to it, or you got to the kind of level where the gear is just a tool and what to do with this?
Well, I definitely think that it's just a tool. So when I started, and I think this is kind of true for all photographers, just get really gear obsessed. You kind of get into this hole where you're like, well, if I just had that, I would be able to produce this. And you kind of use your lack of gear sort of as your excuse as to why you're not doing things. So I did that for a really long time, and I have an overabundance of gear now. If you may have noticed on Facebook, I'm constantly posting up lenses and stuff that are just like things that I've had for a year or two, and I've used it once. So now my gear, I just bought a Canon 5D Mark IV.
Okay.
And I only bought that because I had a 5D Mark III before that. And it's not even that I needed the upgrade. It was more of just I know that shutter on that Mark III is probably on its last leg. So I better buy a new camera, because last thing I want is this thing to fall apart in the middle of a shoot. And then, like I said, I shoot beauty. So the 100mm Canon Macro L series is on my camera 95% of the time. I shoot everything with it. And then, for me, since I'm shooting so much in studio, and even when I'm shooting outdoors, I'm using lights. For me, my lighting gear is way more important than my camera gear ever could be. So I use Profoto B1 strobes.
Okay.
And then a number of modifiers, and I have a small studio, a personal studio, and I'm constantly building flags and building weird kind of contraptions to help me shape light even better. And I've gotten to the point where I'm far more interested in those kind of things than I am a new lens or a new camera body, or so that's sort of the bulk of what I use is the Canon 5D Mark IV, 100mm macro, and then just a bunch of different lights and light modifiers.
So what is your favorite modifier? If I can, because let's kind of focus on the light, because I'm kind of the same. The camera is just something which we have it and you use it, right? But the light modifiers and the lighting itself, that's what make a difference, right?
Yeah. It's hard to say, because, I bounce back and forth with, you kind of fall in love with something, and then a couple months later you found something new. So it's I have a studio. I mean, I've been shooting for long enough that I have just so many light modifiers that I kind of just neglect, and then kind of rediscover them in the back of the storage space in my studio, and be like, oh, what's this?
I have that, right?
So it's lately I've been obsessed with, I have a Profoto XL white umbrella. And I used to hate umbrella lighting, because I'm a lighting nerd, so I'm all about precision, and light umbrellas just kind of splash light everywhere, and there's not a lot of precision to it. But I've been using that a ton lately, and I'm just obsessed with just the soft, beautiful light that comes out of it. And I'll often shoot with that. It's an XL, so it has to be 5 feet in size at least. So it's a huge umbrella, and I'll often close it down just a little bit, just to give it more of a deep sort of zoomed in kind of look to it, and then I'm able to control it a little bit more. So that's my go-to right now.
Okay.
In terms of lights that I use, it's certainly a 2 foot by 3 foot softbox I use more than anything else. It's just such a perfect size, and you can use it for everything. So I use that probably more than anything, but my obsession lately has been these giant umbrellas.
Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so speaking of that, I just want to talk a little bit about the learning part of photography, because it seems like there's workshops, there's tutorials, there is a lot of stuff where we can kind of dive into and learn, but it seems like our own experience and our kind of own trying to figure out something, that's the best way. So can you tell me a little bit about your learning experiences and how you learn this entire craft? I don't know if this is something which
and I to to give myself a pitch. I do teach workshops, but
Okay.
I tell people, I'm self-taught, and the best weekend that I've learned in was when I lived in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
There was a photographer there that I became friends with, and he had like a studio in his basement, and it was a really nice setup. And he's an insurance adjuster by day, so he had to like leave town for work or whatever, and pretty much was like, "Can I give you a key to my place? You can use the studio, and then just like bring in the mail." And
dream come true, hey?
Right. And that weekend, I mean, immediately I was just like calling up all my friends, pretty much just like buying them a 6-pack of beer to just sit in a chair, and then I would just move lights around them and kind of figure out how lighting worked through that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the best way to learn, is to just sort of mess up a lot. And that's kind of how I tell people to do it at my workshops is, I teach principles and then, give them that foundation and then be there to assist and help where you can, but then also just encourage them to experiment, because that's, you're going to learn more through messing up and experimenting than you ever will, by setting up a light based on a lighting diagram, because that's just boring. It's a creative space, so you want to be creative with it. So
absolutely. And I couldn't agree more with you. And I think, because I do workshops too, and I found people would like to get this like blueprint how to create the image, but it doesn't work that way, right? It seems like we need to figure out kind of own style, and also try to find a solution for certain person, for this certain situation, for certain like lighting. So there's way more to it. So speaking of that, let me jump to my next questions. What next question, which is, why did you choose, because it seems like you've been shooting lately headshots, and the beauty, I think, is just really taking over. So why did you choose that over so many different other genres of photography?
Yeah, so I live here in Los Angeles, and I've lived out here for about 3.5 years now. Mm-hmm. In all of my work, I used to shoot a lot of like commercial work, kind of commercial portraiture that's like on location, sort of environmental work. And I've always used lighting on location. I always liked working with a team because I've always gotten better results. So it's when I moved here, I kind of had like the two things. It was sort of the start of the new year, so you look through your portfolio and you're kind of like, I hate all of this. This is all old work. Mm-hmm. I want to like wipe it off and start fresh. So I looked through my website, and it was my beauty portfolio on my website was by far the weakest of all the portfolios. So I was like, I'll start there. Mm-hmm. And also was like, that's a great opportunity to build my teams, to find makeup artists, to find hairstylists, to find these people that would be able to help with that. Because, you ask any makeup artist in the world, the thing that they want to shoot is beauty, because that's really kind of highlighting their talents. Yeah. So I looked at it like that. I looked at it like, I think headshots and beauty, especially, really show that you have like a core grasp of lighting. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of like little subtle nuances about it that really can kind of show that you know what you're doing lighting wise. And then with beauty, especially like retouching, and just like making retouching look perfect, but not completely overdone. So it was like, I kind of started on beauty for that reason, was just like, I'm going to rebuild this portfolio. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make a kick-ass portfolio, and then go from there. And then, I've been shooting beauty for 2.5 years now. Yeah. And it just kind of like took over, and I enjoy doing it.
Yes.
So it just kind of like took over, and I've kind of pushed everything else to the side and just continued to shoot beauty.
Yeah.
So.
And I think also with the beauty, you can kind of spill on the headshots, right? Because when you kind of get the grasp of good retouching and creating images which are more interesting, I think that also is going to draw people into, your work, right? Yeah. And I think people are more drawn into the beauty shots. I found, like, I get a lot of clients not because the headshots, but they see some beauty shot and they're like, oh, I like that better, right? So they kind of like elevate your skills to the next level.
Yeah.
So
I always get like a lot of flack for it, because I live in LA, so I live in like this place that has sunshine year round, and it's beautiful weather, and I'm always in the studio shooting. Like, I should probably be roaming the streets taking photos of beautiful people in front of palm trees, but just stick to the studio.
Yeah, well, I'm jealous of that weather in LA. There's no question about it. Actually, we got snow last week, believe it or not. And I remember I talked to Dylan Patrick, and he's like, you should go out and shoot a little more outside. Don't, sit inside. I'm like, I'll send you the photos, how bad it is out there. Yeah, for sure. So tell me, I'm going to go into more a little bit details on, your shot. So what is the most important component of the image? So like, I know there's several different things. It's, the makeup, is the hair, is the lighting, the face expression, the list goes on and on and on. So how would you kind of categorize, what would be your categories when it comes to, those components of a good image? If you could just tell me.
I've always been, a firm believer that the most important thing in terms of, especially, portrait photography is like, you just have to have that connection with your client. And it's funny that you bring up Dylan, because Dylan and I have had like long talks about this. He teaches headshot workshops and stuff as well. And, it's like, I've met so many photographers that just have like a great understanding of lighting, of composition, of retouching, of all of these things, but they don't ever interact with their clients. So you end up getting this deer in the headlight look in every single one of their photos. And it's, I'm a firm believer that regardless if you're working with a model that's been shooting, having his or her photo taken forever, there's just something that's like, people stand in front of a camera and they're instantly a little uncomfortable.
Yes.
So you have to address with that. You have to work with them, and you have to make them feel comfortable in front of your camera. And unfortunately, there's not like a class that you can really take that can teach you how to do that. So yeah, for me, like the most important thing to a photo is just making sure that you have this connection with your client, with your subject, and then kind of everything else sort of falls to the wayside. So
okay. Perfect. Well, I have the same approach, and I think another thing which is, so unique about what we do is that each client is different, right? And we come in, when we actually going to the shoot, we're going into some kind of unknown territory that we just don't know what's going to happen, right? But I completely agree with you. So I'm going to change the gear a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more about retouching, because this is something what, I've been trying, talk a lot, because I've noticed by looking at so many other photographers and the questions which are coming to me, that there's still that kind of attitude that I want my images look the best when they're coming out of the camera, and they kind of try to blame that they don't, not blame, but they're trying to kind of say that retouching is unnecessary for the work. So with the beauty work is something which is extremely important, right? And this is something which you cannot really skip or kind of replace. So tell me a little bit about your process of retouching. Do you retouch yourself, or you kind of send those images to someone else for retouching? Like, if you could just tell me a little bit about your process, because it seems when I look at your work, there is definitely, I would say, that kind of consistency which kind of connects all those images. And I can see that this is done by one person, because, if you send the same image to 5 different retouchers, they look completely different, right?
Yeah.
So what is your take on it, and what's your process of the retouching part?
Yeah, so I do, I used to retouch all of my work. I used to be sort of neurotic about it and kind of took a stance of, this is my work. Retouching is part of the process. This is my image. I need to do it myself. And then over with beauty retouching, it takes, in order for it to do right, for you to do it right, there's no real shortcuts. It's just, you've got to sit there. It's not anything that there's no secrets. There's nothing that's fundamentally difficult about beauty retouching. It just takes forever.
Yes.
And that's just the nature of it. So, it kind of got to the point where I started shooting beauty and was retouching my own work, and it just kind of got overwhelming, because for me it's I'm rebuilding this portfolio. I want to be turning out work as frequently as possible, and it's really difficult to do if I'm shooting something and then it's going to take me an hour and a half per photo to retouch something. So I started seeking out retouchers, and my main retoucher is a good friend of mine. Her name is Susan, and she sort of approached me. She was familiar with my work. I was familiar with hers, and she kind of approached me and was just like, hey, I'm kind of doing some retouching on the side. I'd love to work on some of your photos. So I sent her some photos just kind of as like a test. And the photos she sent back were great. And I've worked with her for probably 2 years now, pretty consistently. And through that, you know, it's like, if I get a set back from her that I don't like, I might change something, but I'll show her the changes. So, you know, the whole idea is that you find a retoucher that can like still produce the images that you want and retouch in the way that you want it retouched, but just sort of save you time as well.
Yes.
And, you know, at times I'll use other retouchers as well because she shoots full time too. She retouches for other people, so her schedule's just kind of hectic these days. So I'll find other retouchers. And even with that, it's a lot of communication. It's a lot of like chatting back and forth. And they'll usually send me like one photo retouched, and then I'll go in and make all of the changes, and then be like, "This is what I did to that photo." And then through that, it's kind of just that trial and error process. But with beauty photography, retouching is like, you can't be a beauty photographer and not retouch. You know, it just doesn't work that way. So, or not have your images retouched. So, you know, it's a huge aspect of the world that I'm in. And while I don't condone people being lazy and being like, oh, we can just fix that in Photoshop, but I mean, I'm very much like, if you have a tool that can like make your images more interesting, use it. Like, you need to use it. And if you're not using it, you're sort of doing you're doing a misjustice to, you know, what you're capable of. So I'm a huge fan of retouching. I think, you know, when done right, it can kind of take everything to the next level.
Absolutely. So. But I think also that another thing which is kind of misconception with retouching, because there's two types of, I think, approach to retouching. One of them is, you know, enhancing an image where, you know, you have already good solid image which needs to be kind of polished and, you know, take to the next level. But I also noticed that there's a lot of photographers out there who are using, you know, retouching as a kind of tool to fix stuff, right? Oh, I'll screw up this, and, you know, like the lighting is bad, and then like, you know, image is not sharp, like, you know, the list goes on. And now we're going to sit in Photoshop and start fixing all the mistakes which they shouldn't happen in the first place, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I use Photoshop and retouching solely as a tool to enhance the images. If there's something that I can fix at the moment, you know, it's your job to fix it. So.
Yes, absolutely. So let's do a little bit step back. I know I actually push on that retouching, but one of those things which I would like to ask about, and you mentioned that before, like a few minutes ago, regarding having the right team, right? Like, you know, the hairstylist, the makeup artist. And I want to talk to you because in the beauty, those are another couple components which you have to work with the right people. Because, you know, you can have the best lighting, you can have the best retoucher, but if the makeup and the hair, you know, it's a mess, there's nothing what we can do, right? So tell me about building your team, you know, and especially I want to talk about the makeup artists, because in that industry, we know that this is another, you know, huge thing which can take our work to completely different level, right?
Oh yeah. So I kind of started on the building the team is, you know, I fully admit I know nothing about makeup. I'm a complete idiot in that world. And I also know that like bad makeup can in some regards be fixed in Photoshop. So it can be really hard to like cast a makeup artist and like, you know, put your faith in them. So a lot of the makeup artists that like, I have 3 or 4 makeup artists that I use for everything. And like, I get messages all the time from makeup artists that want to work together. And I'm just like, I kind of got my people that I trust. Like, I know this one's great for this. I know this one's great at this, you know, and I just got like my teams assembled. And when I, you know, initially finding them, it was all about, I reached out to people who were beauty photographers in the industry in my neighborhood in LA, that I trust, and was just like, I want my work to someday look like your work. And then pretty much just, do you have recommendations for makeup artists? And kind of use their recommendations for my work. And then kind of through that, met other people and sort of assembled my teams in that way. But it's a long process. And it's like, you know, you've got to kind of trial and error. It gets to the point where you kind of understand what looks right and what doesn't, just through, you know, after you've retouched photos long enough and different things like that, you realize who are the good ones and who are the not so good ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also, you know, based on my experience, we also learn from them, right? Because, I was exactly the same as you said. I had no idea anything about makeup. And, there's someone coming in and, they do own thing. And then you just like, okay, let's try that, right? But I think that during the process of shooting those, beauty shots, everyone is learning from each other, right? And then the more you work with these people, seems like they also elevate their quality of work to the next level, right? So absolutely perfect. So now I want to actually show you some stuff. So I dove into your Instagram account and I pull out some images. So what I would like to do, I'm going to show you the image, and if you could just tell me a little bit of, I would say, behind the story, maybe a little bit some technical stuff about the shoot itself. What was the shoot for, whatever informations you want to share, to just give me a little bit more, I would say, feedback and kind of informations about the image. Because and I have to say, your work is stunning. I absolutely love your images, and so I just would like to know a little bit more about the stuff what you're doing and some maybe details of the shoot. So this is the first image which I pull out.
Okay. So that photo was just a test shoot. So it was, we live in kind of the era of Instagram and different things. And, I've booked the majority of like my beauty, like paid jobs and stuff have come from Instagram. So one of the techniques that you kind of have to employ is just constantly creating new work all of the time. So that was just, I had some downtime and I had set up a shoot. And that photo is actually with one of my favorite makeup artists. Her name's Maddie North. And we were talking, and it was like we hadn't worked together in a few weeks. So it was like, let's set something up. So we reached out to a couple agencies here in LA, got like a package of models that were interested and available in testing, and picked her. And then kind of went from there. And it was just a standard, like clean beauty, nothing too crazy, but it's, it's nice when you get, I get along so well with Maddie, the makeup artist, that it's just, it's kind of like hanging out, and it's model comes over and it's just like three people hanging out. So I keep my shoots really, really casual. And that's just sort of one of the images that we got. I'm always a fan. She's kind of got like a little bit of attitude to her.
Yes.
She's like Eastern European. So she's just, I think, naturally got like a little bit of feist.
Okay. Well, so you can see the face expression is just brilliant, right? You can, as you said, it's like.
And, I started as a headshot photographer through all of this. So, as you know, it's all about kind of like grabbing somebody immediately and getting their attention immediately. So she kind of like gave like one of those like snarls just sort of accidentally at one point. And I was just like, no, give me that. I want the attitude. I don't want the simple like smiling or, looking off. Like, I want that attitude. So she started giving me some like furrowed brows and just kind of went with it. So. Yeah,
it's a gorgeous shot. Okay, so the next image I want to show you, this is, well, one of my favorite. I don't know, is just the colors, the entire image is just brilliant.
I think I know which one it is.
Yeah, this one.
Yep. Yeah. So that photo is with a good friend of mine, Angel. She's a model here in LA. And she was, I think, the first model I worked with in LA for a beauty shoot. Like, I had not done anything, and I'm not even entirely sure how we got in touch. I think she may have reached out to me, or I may have reached out to her, but either way, like, I've worked with her probably a dozen times since then. And we just get along really, really well. So she got booked for a hair campaign for, I think it's called Arctic Fox.
Okay.
And they make the crazy bold colored hair stuff. So she like texted me as she was getting her hair dyed. She had to sit in a chair for 10 hours as they dyed her hair this rainbow color. And she's like, I'm getting my hair dyed for this hair campaign. I'll only have my hair like this for a week, because immediately after this campaign, my agency is going to be like, change it back to normal colors. She's like, we've got to shoot this. So they were doing, the campaign ended up being kind of like steampunk, out in the desert sort of look. So I was like, I just want to do like a really, really beautiful like beauty image in the studio. So we set the entire shoot up in the course of maybe 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
Because we had such a short timeline. And I was able to get my friend Haley on board, who's a brilliant makeup artist. I was able to get Jared on board as in hair, and he's a brilliant hairstylist. And it just all kind of came together, and we were able to shoot it. And yeah, it's one of my favorite images as well.
Well, it's a killer shot for sure, you know. And I think that this is one of those images which you cannot just kind of pass by, right? Like you're just scrolling through, you know, some crazy stuff on Instagram, and then you see this image like this, and you just push the brakes right away, and then you have to like dig into this and just look at it. Perfect. Okay, so my next shot, what I want to show you is this one.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I just want to say it's a beautiful shot, and one of those things which I love about this shot is the toning. I don't know what you have done here. Probably it's going to be a secret, but it just kind of complements the entire image, and it's really cool.
So that shot was, in fact, I just worked with that model again 3 days ago. That shot is just, she had hired me to shoot some clean beauty work. So I got my friend Omaya, that's a makeup artist, to come along, and it was just simple, clean beauty. And if you go through my portfolio, you know I'm obsessed with that like background color. It's called Pecan by Savage. It's just like this like kind of muted peachy color, but then judging by how you light it, you can just like match skin tones perfectly. So in terms of like the toning on the image, because I've been asked that multiple times, the toning on this is crazy. There's not any like drastic toning done to the image. It's just like when you're able to match that skin tone so well with the backdrop, you're able to just kind of like pull out like these really, really great natural tones out of the skin. So I shot just on that backdrop, and then what I did was I flagged in. So I kind of had her standing between two black flags, and that's able to give that contrast and definition in the lighting. So it's like I'm able to use bigger lighting, which gives like really soft, elegant glow, but then like kind of cuts hard into black on her cheekbones just by those black flags. So but I also found there's certain people who have that, I don't know, specific skin tone which just works perfectly, right? And sometimes you have someone who, you know, is really beautiful, but as soon as the light hit the person's skin, it doesn't work as well. But I think in this case, as you said, you know, like if it's not even too much done when it comes from the, you know, retouching perspective, you know, she probably has this type of skin which, you know, camera loves that, right? Yeah, I wish I could take credit for like the toning, but it came down to like a brilliant makeup artist and a great skin on a model.
Well, you can take it. You can just, you know.
It was all me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You should have seen it before.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Okay, so the next image, what I really like about it is such a kind of clean approach, and you know, I just want to show you the image, and then we can kind of discuss this a little bit more. But it's just pure beauty image. So can you tell me a little about it, because it's another image, and I think the pose, the retouching, I know there's huge discussion about the hands in the image, but in this case it just kind of complements the image, right?
I typically try to keep hands out of images, just because they can look weird really easily. So we just happened to get really lucky with her. You know, she kind of placed her hands on her face, but it was really natural and simple. I can kind of deduct that image a little bit in terms of, you know, how I shot it. So that was another shoot with my makeup artist, Haley, and we kind of got set up. We were just going to do simple, clean beauty work. The model showed up, and the model, obviously, she's gorgeous. She was kind of a little broad-shouldered. And like kind of a shorter neck. So it's like after makeup was done, we sit her down, and like the first 25 photos that I took, I just like wasn't happy with it at all. And it was all about like kind of adjusting your shooting angle and stuff. So when I shot lower on her, I was able to extenuate her neck a bit. And then, you know, I would kind of turn her in various directions, and it would make her neck a lot longer. It would kind of like shrink her frame a bit. And it's one of those things where it's like, if you saw her in person, you would never be like, oh, she has a short neck and like broad shoulders. Like, it's just something that you see as like a photographer. This kind of photograph's weird. So there's a lot of trial and error. And I was honestly really focused on her neckline and kind of giving that really long, elegant neck. So it ended up like I decided I was going to backlight it. So the backdrop in that is actually I think it's a 4 foot or maybe no 5 foot octabox.
Oh, okay.
And I just set that up right behind her so I could have it kind of overpowering everything else.
Yeah, it's like a
sort of giving her this beautiful rim light as well.
Absolutely.
And then we just kind of went from there. I think I probably had like an umbrella in front and the octabox, and I just sort of had her sandwiched between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just able to get this like soft, elegant light kind of bouncing back and forth on her. And it worked out perfectly. So,
and also what was so interesting what you have said, because I've experienced that so many times when, you're starting the photo shoot and, you have this beautiful model, makeup is great, lighting is, perfect, and there's something which doesn't work, right? And we see that, it just bugs you, and then you start kind of going on that search for angles, different things. But that's...
Well, and that kind of reiterates the point that we made earlier of like, I wish that you could just put a lighting diagram and it would work for everyone. You could just set up lights and have it permanently affixed. But like people's faces are different, and there's like subtleties in their faces, and you have to work with that. I've worked with models that are just like absolutely gorgeous, but they have kind of dark, like deep setted eyes. So if you light them from above, you end up getting these raccoon eyes under their eyes. So you almost have to light them straight on. And it's just sort of all about like acknowledging those little subtleties.
Yes.
And lighting their face in a way that works best for them.
Absolutely. And, and it's also what you said, that each person is different, right? There's no, as you said, the kind of blueprint, and then you can go for it. But I think, that's what makes us kind of experts, per se, that, we can find those, kind of ways to find the right angle, the right lighting for each person, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next shot. I'm just going to go straight to it.
Yeah, the segue is perfect, because that's actually a model that she does have sort of deeper set eyes.
Yep.
So it's like I've worked with, or I was looking through her portfolio before I like selected her like as somebody I wanted to work with, and I just like wasn't, not to like dog on like her portfolio, because she's absolutely gorgeous and the work in her portfolio is great. I just like nothing really stood out too much. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't until I was assisting a friend of mine who's a beauty photographer, and they had I was assisting her for a campaign, and they had casted that model for that campaign, and was pretty much, not only was I like just charmed by her because she had such a great attitude and personality, but like just seeing her face and like being like, oh, people have been lighting your face wrong. Like, I want to work with you. And it's the same backdrop as I said before. That's the con. I'm obsessed with that color, because
I can tell.
Get this like beautiful like skin tones, like this rich color out of it. And that was like I said, the same thing. It was just all about like recognizing the subtleties in the face, and just lighting it in a way that like works really well for that. So I ended up lighting her kind of straight on. I think it was with like a beauty dish and a bounce from below. So it was kind of standard beauty lighting.
Okay.
But it's like, instead of having the beauty dish kind of angled straight down, I ended up kind of having it angled towards her to make sure she didn't get those raccoon eyes.
Yes. So. Okay, so the last shot, I think, is one of the most your recent images.
Okay. Oh man, that's today.
Oh, is it?
Today.
You see, yeah. I'm on it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's possibly one of my favorite photos that I've taken.
Okay.
Yeah, I have an entire set of photos. Stay tuned on that one. I have a bunch of weird stuff. That was a makeup artist was traveling to LA from Florida.
Okay.
And he had, I believe, booked a shoot with a friend of mine who's a great beauty photographer, Jen Collins. Mm-hmm. And Jen was unable to do it because of scheduling. So she referred him to me. Okay. And he had sort of like a loose concept in mind. And then through that, we were able to cast the model, get hair on board, and just kind of assemble this team. So we ended up shooting, I think, 8 hours that day. Oh, wow. It was an all-day shoot. And I am like known for doing like 2 looks. Like I want to shoot for 2-3 hours tops, and then I'm like, I need my nap. Okay. So it was a really long day, but we had sort of built this narrative where it's like the first shots of the day are very clean. They're shot on like kind of a light pink backdrop, and then they just sort of transition. I've got one that has like these flares in it, and that's supposed to like, it's sort of supposed to document the day. So it's like the first straight, clean, beautiful, like simple beauty stuff is like morning. And then I've got these like weird flares and stuff, and that's midday. And then the like it kind of turns into the spotlight type lighting, and then from there, that's the last look. And it's just like at that point, I was like, I want it to be sort of like cosmic and sort of like this weird, like glitter on the face, and the glitter is sort of like star trails, and shooting, a very, very different from what I would normally shoot probably. But that was lit through a lot of trial and error. So since I wanted this, this like kind of motion, and like if you look closely, you can kind of see like there's some motion in the glitter, and there's like these lines that kind of glitter hits. So I ended up lighting it with a beauty dish camera right, and then a light with a magnum reflector camera left, and that was just solely to like bring a little light into the eyes. And then I had a KinoFlow 4-bank, which is a consistent fluorescent light set up, and that was just for, because I was dragging the shutter, so I was shooting that at like a half a second shutter speed on a tripod, and then that was able to kind of catch the movement and get that like light into the glitter. And then the backdrop was just gelled with a cyan gel on one side and like a purple one on the other, and just kind of like went from there. And it's a lot of trial and error, but at that point we had been working together for 7 hours that day, so like we just kind of like got it. We were just like in our groove. And like I said, those are some of my favorite images.
Well, it seems like it's a really high tech. People are gonna get so confused about it.
I know. Well, and it was all about kind of like building one light at a time. It was like, all right, I need a consistent light. I need a light that's always on to be able to light her while I drag the shutter. So I brought out a KinoFlow, and then it was like from there, it was like, all right, I'm going to add this light. And it's just building. You kind of just build out
the process.
What you need to do. So.
Yeah. And she also reminds me one of the Polish, really well-known model. I don't know if you know her, Ania Rubik.
The name sounds super.
Yes,
super
I'll send you the link to her. And when I look at her, I thought that you shot her. I was just like, holy smokes. Yeah, and she's like one of the top models, I think, in Poland, but also I think she works with like all the top magazines, and like she's really known in that industry. So I got a little bit jealous, but yeah. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you for all that input. That it's pretty cool. So I have a couple more questions to you. So now we're gonna kind of go a little bit back to the beginning of kind of like for people. I would like to kind of get from you some advice for people who starting off. It seems you have a lot of experience, a lot of shoots under the belt, a lot of years behind you. So what would you say? And one of the one or two advices to someone who is just starting off. They just get the camera, they want to be photographers, and they want to kind of follow that career. So what would you tell to someone like that?
I mean, the best advice I always tell anybody is to just do it. For so long when I was starting off, I would have these like interesting concepts in mind, or these ideas that I wanted to shoot, but I just shelved them for forever because it was like I don't want to do this, and if I'm not good at, if I can't, execute it to the level that I envision it, I don't want to do it. And they end up just sitting on that shelf forever. Like, you have to realize that like your skills are always going to improve, and if you have a good idea and you shoot it, you can always reinvestigate that idea in a couple of years when you're even better. If you're not satisfied with those images. So I tell people like, just shoot, like just go out there and do it, and like don't be afraid to mess up. It's really easy to get discouraged, but we live in the digital era where, messing up doesn't cost money, or it doesn't cost the amount of money that it did, 20 years ago when people were burning through film, and like, these things took time. So it's just do it, and, don't make excuses for yourself on like gear. Like I shoot in a garage, like my studio is just a garage that I converted over. I have beauty photographers, like friends of mine who are beauty photographers who have shot global campaigns for CoverGirl, and they'll shoot stuff in their living room on their downtime. There's if you're just shooting something because you have a weird idea and you want to like get it on paper, there's no reason that you need to go out and rent a 3,000 square foot studio and thousands of dollars worth of light. Like use what you have and just see if it works. So that's like my biggest piece of advice. And then you said 2, huh? My other one would just be like, I guess just kind of take critique well.
Okay.
I think, it's easy to get wrapped up in this, this world of, you'll post photos and some people will just kind of, like, pardon my language, but kind of just shit on your stuff.
Yes.
And I remember when I started off, I would like go through their portfolio and be like, they don't know what they're talking about. And it's kind of one of those things where it's just like, just because somebody's work isn't at this top tier caliber doesn't mean that they don't have input. So I say just kind of maintain an open mind. Know that like everybody's trying to improve, and there's no reason that you need to like add poison to the industry by having a bad attitude. So it's like whenever anybody like critiques my work, I always have like friends or fans of my work kind of like rush to defend me.
Okay.
And I'm just like, no, like those are all good points. Like he's right. I should, brighten the background a little bit more. I should do this or whatever. And it's important to kind of keep like a humbleness about you and keep yourself at a place where you recognize that there's always improvements to be made. And even the best photographers in the world, like,
they make mistakes.
They don't do everything perfect all of the time. So.
Absolutely. I was watching actually. I'm really glad you actually brought that point because yesterday I was watching. I'm sure you know this guy, Gary Vaynerchuk, and then he had this keynote speech in I think Orlando or somewhere in the States. And actually, he was actually making the same point you were making that you have to be very reserved on all those people who are going after you. But the one point what he says, and really that really stuck to me, he says like if someone is finding the time to sit down on the computer and make you an essay about how bad your work it is, it says more about them that they have nothing else to do than about you who are trying and you're doing things, you're trying to progress, you try to learn something, right? But but I also think that it's so interesting that we're living in this world where there's more negativity that people try to support you or encourage you, try to kind of tell you that you're on a good path, whatever, right? It's always those bunch of trolls who they just like waiting for you to post something and they can just kind of jump into this and kind of trash your work right on the spot, right?
Well, and I used to be the features editor at a website called F-Stoppers.
Yes.
And I managed the staff for years, and I would constantly have to tell people, because like all websites, the comments on that website can sometimes be really toxic and just really just vindictive and mean-spirited. And I would tell people, we would get new writers in all the time, and they would write 2 articles and be like, I'm done here. Like those comments are killing me. And I would always be like, don't read the comments, A. And if you read the comments, like you have to recognize, like, there are 3 people in the comments that are just being asses. And it's like, but you had 10,000 people read this article. Like, so there was 9,997 other people that read this article and was just like, okay, cool, and moved on. And like the same stays for when you're posting a photo on Instagram, when you're posting a photo on, Facebook, anywhere. It's the large majority of people will see it, move on, see it, like it, whatever. And then there are those few people that will, kind of make it their liberty to kind of tear it apart. And you can't focus on those people because they're definitely in the minority, even though their voice seems to be the loudest.
Absolutely. And I think that what is so interesting, and I was trying to kind of think about those stuff once in a while, because you can get 40, let's say, positive comments, which, well, you're happy, right? You're excited. But then you have this one comment, which is kind of it's just like you can put this all 40 comments into the closet, right? Because it seems like they don't mean anything, right? Okay, so we got into my last question. So could you tell me what kind of impact you would like to make on, this industry?
Okay.
What's your goal with what you're doing? If you could just give me some.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always
final
been,
thoughts.
I've always kind of found art, whether it be drawing, whether it be writing music, whether it be whatever. I've always used it as sort of an outlet for me. So I create a lot of work for me, and it's just, you know, because I have a weird idea and I want to express it in some way, shape or form, or I just like want to like hone in my talents. You know, there's a variety of reasons for it. So it's like whenever anybody asks me like what kind of impact you want to make, like, you know, I've always kind of been selfish with my photography, and it's always been just sort of like, this is sort of my thing. And it, you know, obviously I make a living doing it. I'm fortunate enough to where I've got clients that trust what I want to do enough to hire me for things. So for me, it's just like continue to improve, continue to get like bigger named clients and people that trust me even further. Obviously with like a little more money would be great. And just like, you know, I'm always like fascinated that like my work can inspire so many people. You know, I grew up in a small town in Michigan that nobody's ever heard of. And, you know, just looking back I went back a couple weeks ago to visit my family and sort of surprise my mom on her birthday. And just like seeing all of these people I went to like high school and college with that are like kind of like low-key proud of me. They're like, oh, he's out there in LA like living this life. And I'm just like, well, you guys got it a little wrong. I live a pretty modest life, but sure.
It's a lot of work behind, right?
Exactly. And it's just like, so I just want to continue to inspire people. I just want to continue to constantly be improving my work, constantly using photography sort of as this like outlet for expression, like expressing myself, and then, you know, hopefully getting some attention from other people as well, that find my work inspiring, or, you know, it challenges them in some way too. So
perfect. Awesome. So that was absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for all your input. You know, I will be looking forward to see more of your work because it's not only beautiful, but it's also very inspiring for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And also thank you for accepting this invitation and, you know, for this little chat. As I said, that was, I'm absolutely honored and super happy that I could even meet you in person. You know, maybe we're a little bit at distance, but we have a chance to chat face to face. So thank you for everything.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll link all the, you know, your website, your social media platform to this vlog so people can, you know, check what you do. And I'm sure most of the guys, they already know who you are and, you know, like they following you. So thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Okay, thank you.